Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Albers, and welcome to This Week in Anderson on the Big Guy Sportscast on USBN Sports. I'm always joined with my co-host, Steve Ellis. And Steve, another special guest we have here. You've obviously know him through, I think you've coached him, and but growing up through the Anderson thing, played on that, that special team in Anderson that made the playoffs, and great in the community. And it's going to be great catching up with Nate.
Well, this one brings me back, Danny, because obviously back to my my younger days when I think I wore a sock tie in a team picture with Nate, and my hair was not gray. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Nate's a great guy. He's a legend at Anderson, so this is gonna be good.
Yeah, this could be really good.
My hair wasn't gray either, Steve.
Well, we're joining us is as we said, Nate Kosman. And Nate, we really appreciate you joining us. I know you got a pretty busy schedule, and thanks for joining us tonight.
No problem. I'm honored. Honored you thought of me. You must have ran out of other guests, huh?
You know what? That's funny. We've had some other people that say the same thing, and I'm like, no. Steve and I made a list of all the people we want. We're just whoever we can get at the time, because there's been times, Nate, when we're like, we forget, and we're like, oh my God, who do we got this week? Like, oh, we don't have anybody. Who are we gonna get? So we're trying to. So no, we've had you on our list for a long time.
That's right.
I figured I was like 655th on the list, and you just been running out of people. So.
No.
But I tell you what, I watched Jake and Joe. I watched Randy Corbett, and tough act to follow. Those guys were terrific interviews and great guys for you to select for sure.
Yeah.
Well, they had good stories, so we expect some good stories from you, Nate.
I'll have to dig into the memory banks, but I'm sure I can come up with a couple.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah. So Nate, let's we kind of get in the back in the early years of Anderson, and I know that you played youth sports in Anderson. Talk a little bit about like when you were growing up in Anderson and playing sports, and what that was like for you.
Yeah. So I guess my story is a little unique in a way. Everybody's is, right? But and I know Joe Dunn mentioned it in his interview, but we grew up playing for Mount Washington Nighthawks football together, and we had a great group of guys there. I don't know how many games we won in a row, but it was a heck of a lot of fun, and just a great group of guys. Aaron Zabo, Joe Dunn, Jason Bell, Jason Druso. I'm probably forgetting a few. Mike Martin, Mike Thuman, all of us ended up playing at Anderson together. And so back then, we were the first class that didn't go to the middle school. And I actually lived in the Turpin district. And so 7th grade, I went to Turpin. And youth football went through 7th grade back then. And I think what was unique about my story is that my parents said, boy, you had such a great experience with this group of guys. Why don't we move to Anderson? And my parents actually moved to Anderson, not just because of me and my friends, but, I think they were probably planning on moving anyway. And they kind of asked what we thought about that. And so we intentionally moved to Anderson, which was I don't know, maybe Siberia of high school football at the time to play football for Anderson.
Yeah.
So, I think that says a lot about the class that I was in, and really didn't know what was in store for me. In that Vince Siriano was, we were going to collide. That class was going to collide with Vince on the, ascension to high school football elite at that time in Cincinnati. So, I couldn't ask for more, to be honest.
Yeah, that's an unbelievable story, and that's just great. And I didn't know this stuff about Joe, and that's why we kind of do these things, is for everybody to kind of familiar with what's going on. And obviously, we all know, and a lot of the people out there listening know that you were on that playoff team that with Joe Dunn and some of the guys that you mentioned. And I love talking about it because as a guy that played on those teams, like you said, in Siberia, I played on those teams that were horrible at Anderson. And then to see my high school, and you guys were a part of that, to do what you guys did was special for me, and it always is special. So talk a little bit about, that special bond that you guys had, obviously growing up and then playing football at Anderson.
Yeah, I think what made that group so special, we had a bunch of terrific athletes, and you can rattle them all off. But I think what made that group so special was there was so many different guys in that group, but there was a bunch of leaders, and everybody assumed leadership. It wasn't like there was, obviously Jason Druso was the name everybody knew from our class. And Jason was a leader in a different way than I was, or that Joe Dunn was, or Jason Bell. And the list goes on and on through a number of different guys, and who I'm sure we'll talk about all of them. But there was just so many willing leaders and different types of leaders on that team. So, we worked real hard, and we stayed out of trouble, which, I would say, you can speak to this, Dan, but I think maybe Anderson had a reputation a little bit before that of a bunch of guys who were good time party guys, and, wanted to play some good football and everything. But and our class kind of said, you know what, I think we got a real chance. And not just our class. I think Vince brought that in the classes leading up to our senior season. But there was a real commitment there, a lot of leadership, and a real belief that if we really focused on it, we could do something special. And I think everybody talks about what a special time it was at Anderson, and a lot of us probably look back and go, man, we let that get away, and kind of feel like we let one get by. So it was special, don't get me wrong, but I think we had our heights set even higher, and that was kind of maybe the trademark of our group was, like I said, all that stuff we believed, and we saw the guys how hard they worked. So there was such a mutual respect for one another that lives to this day, believe me. But also that we were pretty cocky and confident. I'd say confident. I'd say everybody else who knew us would say cocky, and that was okay with us because we were going to back it up. And so that I think about those guys all the time. Talk to a lot of those guys, stay in touch with them, and there's a bond there. And we don't really necessarily talk about the games or the plays, but just about the time we had together, and because they're all special people.
Yeah, and Nate, the thing too is we've talked with all these other guys too, with Jake and Joe, and just pretty much all the guys that have played football. That there not only is there a special bond that you guys have created as a team, but I think in general it's created a bond for the football guys in general. Like like I've said this to these guys. I played in '86 and we were horrible, but yet we've all got this. We've got this bond that we all are. You and I could see each other, and it's like we play together, or that what I mean. So it's I think you guys created that I guess that bond and that atmosphere. You know what I mean? Do you agree with that?
Well, you know what I always think about it. I had somebody say to me, I think I was interviewing for the documentary, which I don't know where that stands. I look forward to that coming out. But somebody said, why would Anderson football have a documentary? What have they ever done? I think friends of mine who went to LaSalle or Moeller or Coleraine, they don't see us in that same echelon caliber of high school football in Cincinnati. But I think what makes Anderson football so special is where we came from. And that's not to diminish the, teams like yours, Dan, who maybe didn't put up a bunch of wins, but when you work through something and you ascend to a different height, it's a little more special than when you're just anointed.
Absolutely.
You went to Moeller. No offense to anybody who went to Moeller, but Moeller's going to be good, and that's just the way it is. And, I don't know. It means a little more when you build something, and it didn't just start with our class or or Vince when he got here. It's goes back and it continues to go forward as well.
I mean, you can go back all the way to the 1948 team if you want. I mean, there was nothing. I mean, you really could. I mean, but Steve, I'll let you get your question here in a minute. But the thing that I thought was really neat is when we did our reunion and seeing these guys in the 50s and 60s that had tears in their eyes, and they were saying, "Hey, man, this is really, really cool. We stunk back in the day, but this is awesome that we can all get together and be together and enjoy." And that meant more to me than anything in the world is just to see these older guys to have a tear in her eye. You know, they were excited to be there.
Yeah. Well, it was something special, you know, to be a part of the, like I said, building it. I think we all did it together, but then also to have an opportunity later to, you know, I think about my family involvement in over the years. You know, I played, was a captain, and my brother played. He was a captain, real good football player. My mom was very involved in the Moms Club, and she may have even been Moms Club president. I don't want to short her on that one. And my dad was real involved in the boosters and announced games with Marty back in the day, which was pretty cool. I think he gets a kick out of telling his buddies, yeah, I used to announce with Marty, you know, and wasn't the Reds, but it was Anderson High School football. But,
Yeah.
pretty cool. And then, you know, we had an opportunity to raise my cousin Devin, who some people remember, under Jeff Geesting. He was a manager. I'm trying to think of what year he graduated, but Jeff Geesting got him involved in the football program.
Right.
And then finally my son played. And when my son was playing under both Jeff Geesting and Evan Dreyer, Christy was the Moms Club president. So, you know, and that's the whole thing when you see the spectrum from, you know, maybe coming from a program that wasn't real successful and wasn't supported, and then through those great years that I felt like I was a part of and my brother was a part of, and then you see a state championship, and then my kids get to experience it, and you know, it's a special part of our family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nate, before we get to the playoffs part, which, you know, I know Danny's itching to get to, I just want to go back to our connection when you were in junior high, because, you know, there's a lot of legends on your team there. And when I helped coach basketball with Cinco, and I mean, if you think
I thought
back,
we were here to talk mostly about my basketball career. No,
that's it. Because
hey,
I'm telling you,
my football career was lackluster, but my basketball career was less than that. So
yes. So I mean, but that was a really good team for that age group, and you can look back on and say, you know, because there was just a ton of athletes with the Jason Bells, the Aaron Zabos, the Drussos. You know, he played basketball, yourself and everybody, and we were really good. And I'm thinking, okay, you know, this is going to transpire into really good high school basketball. Well, you know, Nate is more football, and Dunn and Jason and Drusso's a swimmer, and you know, so everybody kind of went their own different ways, but they're all, you could tell back then how athletic everybody was, and as you said, leaders too.
Yeah. Well, that was a fun year with you and Coach Cinco, and we, you know, there wasn't enough basketballs to go around on that team, and but you know, you bring up an excellent point, because you think about guys like Joe Dunn and Jason Drusso, who were obviously Hall of Fame athletes at Anderson, who were just good athletes. They weren't great basketball players, but you know, there was so many athletes in that class that the guys who were playing basketball in the 8th grade weren't playing basketball in high school. You know, and you had guys like, you know, obviously Drusa is one of the Enquirer greatest athletes of Cincinnati high school sports history. And, you know, Joe Dunn, who's in the Football Hall of Fame, and, you know, and guys like Adam Williams from that basketball team who ended up going to, you know, being 6'10" or whatever he was, and playing at Barry University. So you're right. There was a group there. Dave Bailey was a hell of a basketball player.
David Bailey, right? Wasn't there a point guard that moved to Georgia, Matt Weiss or Weiss?
Matt Weiss, yeah. So I played youth football with Matt Weiss. Well, I'll tell you another group from since you brought up Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, Jason Druso, and Brad Keatley all came to the Mount Washington Nighthawks at the same time when we were 11 or 12 years old. And they were, you know, these 3 kids with bleach hair from swimming in the pool so much. And a couple of us thought they were going to be soft, and they were 3 damn good athletes. Brad Keatley would have been the 3rd linebacker with Joe and I my senior year. Brad moved to New York. He was the player of the year in the state of New York.
Wow.
No
and
way.
Went on to play at UConn and
No
had a
way.
good college career too. So, so it was just a stacked class. And you think about a few of the guys we lost, like Matt and Brad,
Yeah. Yep.
over the years, or guys who, and there's another guy I'm going to bring up who breaks my heart to even talk about him. But back then we had a teammate named Kevin Pelcha, who you might remember played high school football with us, but he was the best youth football player. Anybody who was around at that time will tell you this, best football player they'd ever seen. He was a man amongst boys. He was a Colombian kid who was intimidating. He was a boxer, a fighter. He was a badass.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Kevin lost his life too young and had an incident where he was shot and killed down in Miami. But all those guys, I mean, there was just so much talent in that class. And,
Yep.
So you nailed it, Steve.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping for a good high school run, but
well, while we're on basketball, well, let's talk about basketball for a second.
Sure.
We never did have a lot of success, but we had a lot of fun. Jamie Mullins and I, my senior year, decided under Frank we were just going to be meatheads. And I don't know if you happen to remember when I tackled Damon Flint through the gym doors at the end of the gym.
It's like in hockey, Danny, where they send in the bruiser to fight. Awesome. Here comes Nate. And
I don't know why Frank put up with me being on the team, because I think I might have got thrown out of 5 or 6 games that year, but or fouled out at least. But no, I loved basketball, but definitely gravitated a little more towards football. So
it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about a lot with these guys about that. That Princeton, the little run that you guys had. Especially with Princeton and I just remember. I mean, for me, going to that game, and I remember we were out in the parking lot tailgating, and all of a sudden snowing like crazy, and I'm like, holy crap, and you guys coming out with short sleeves on and all that, and you guys just, like you said, you had that attitude towards you, and you weren't backing down from Princeton at all, and I think that really set the tone and made the difference in that game, and you guys weren't backing down from St. X at all either.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, when we didn't make the playoffs, back then only 4 teams would make the playoffs. And if I'm not mistaken, there was only 4 or 5 divisions. So not a lot of teams got into the playoffs, especially we were a smaller Division I school. So my junior year, we went 9-1 and Norwood got us, and you missed the playoffs at 9-1. So, we were hungry for it. We believed we'd win every game our senior year. We had no doubt in our minds. We did. And we went into that playoff game with 100% confidence we were going to come out and win in victory. When it started snowing, that kind of got us riled up on the bus. That was, and I think I heard in one of Aaron's interviews with you one time, Dan, say, that was a little bit of a blessing. I think in more ways than one. They were a speed option team, and so it certainly helped us a little bit there. But I think when we walked out with no undershirts on and no spandex and no gloves, and I don't know who came up with that idea on the bus on the way there, but
I heard it was you. Now that's
well, might have been, but I think, like I said, I think there was a lot of guys that we were just kind of sick in the head, was what we used to say. and it was like, we're going to go out with that attitude. And, we all got riled up on the bus, and we're not wearing shirts. And when we walked out, I'm not kidding you, you probably remember this, but Princeton had these parkas on, and they were, we didn't have anything nice like that. They had these knee-length parkas, and they were like fur-lined. They looked like the Green Bay Packers, in the 60s on the sideline, heaters and everything. And they saw us come out with nothing, and I think they were beaten right then and there. And we got out on an early lead there, but they fought hard. They had three D1 guys that I can think of that were damn good football players, and It was just, we made it, theatrical, but we had no doubt.
But hey, I just got to clear things up real quick, Steve. All right, so we need to know now, because I've heard Corbett blame some other people. We've heard someone, Jason Bell. So
Sure.
Whose fault was it for being on the field and Jason had to run you off? Whose fault was that?
All right, so I'll tell you that, first of all, Jason Bell, what a leader. That guy, and I give him hell once in a while about his athletic prowess, but he was a great quarterback because, number one, because of his leadership ability. And so Jason gets a ton of credit for recognizing that, and a lot of other stuff as well. But I'm going to blame Corbett.
I would. That's what I was going to say. That's
we had a set, I believe it was called Thunder Pigs, and it was a big set where we had two tights and I think two big fullbacks in there as well. And that's what we were set in. And somewhere along the lines, the call changed, and I wasn't supposed to be in there. So, and I think under today's rules, we might have been penalized for that. But it wasn't their day. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Probably one of the greatest finishes in Anderson high school history, right there.
I thought you were going to ask me to clear up whether or not we talked Coach into going for it.
Well, that too.
That's what I was going to ask.
We could talk about that too.
Yeah.
I'll give credit to probably Joe Dunn more than anybody on that. I remember we were all kind of talking amongst ourselves, and there was nobody who wanted to kick. Well, I shouldn't say it. Dave Lawrence might have wanted to kick, but I don't think anybody really wanted to kick. And Joe was the most vocal about it with Coach. I've heard Coach say, no, that wasn't true, that we didn't talk him into it. But that's the way I remember it. So
Would some of that be on the documentary, Danny?
Oh yeah, and that's funny because everybody's so anxious, and we are too. And I've told everybody else in these other things, man, Nate, it is so incredibly hard. So we originally were going to just do an hour, and there was just no way in hell we were going to do an hour. We had so much good stuff, so we decided to split it up. And it's it's overwhelming because Patrick and I wanted to be so good, but then it's also we got to then we're trying to make decisions on what to keep and what not to keep, and we've changed some things, and then obviously now Patrick's kind of out of it for a little bit because he's getting married this weekend, so he hasn't been able to work on it. So we are definitely going to get it done. It's just, and I don't know if I've told you this either too, is that Jake Andreas got me hooked up with Mark Edwards.
Oh, so great.
We're going to add Mark Edwards to that, to the documentary to kind of talk about that too, about the big matchup. So it'll come out. It's just, I know everybody's anxious for it, and we just don't want it to, I know it's been a long time. We just don't want to, I don't want to screw it up because it's a reflection of what we've done,
Yeah.
So Nate, one of the questions that we ask is like, when you go through your senior year, especially, how was the recruiting process for you, and where it led you to?
Yeah. So the recruiting process was really interesting with our class, because I think going into the year, there was some conversation about a few of us being recruited, and it expanded because of some of the success we had, I think. And you had a guy like Jamie Mons who showed up a skinny, 5'9", 165-pound kid, is I guess his sophomore year, and left Anderson 6'5", and went to Air Force and played D line. Jeff went to Akron, and for me it was I'd say I was solely focused on the task at hand, but the recruiting process was very disappointing with me. I had a lot more conversations coming out of my junior year than I did coming out of my senior year. Wow. And now today, I think if you didn't have something figured out by your junior year, you'd figure you were toast. But back then it was after your senior year. And we had some things like we had a coach leave us, stand us up at a home visit.
Wow.
Oof.
And called me the following week when I was at a visit at Marshall. Called me in my hotel room to apologize, but and had a number of official visits that got canceled the week of or a couple days prior because they had taken the guy right ahead of me. So, and I had a few offers, but I really believed that I was a Division I football player, not a 1AA football player. In hindsight, my brother played 1AA football at Furman.
Right.
And, I think I don't know, I think he learned a little bit from my experience there, but I was an invited walk-on at Miami, had a great, enjoyed my freshman year there, learned a lot, met a lot of great guys, earned an opportunity for a scholarship, went back for my sophomore year, and ultimately had a battle with my position coach and left. And, I had every intention of continuing to play after that. Came close to transferring to Indiana State to play with Joe.
Oh.
I don't know if I think he mentioned in his interview, one of my teammates from Miami, who got recruited to Miami over Joe,
You're right.
ended up getting thrown out of Miami, and he went to Indiana State. And so Coach Smith, who was a great guy, Coach Smith said, well, we got these guys, and Taibu from Miami is going to come over and play linebacker, so you're going to have to play tight end. And I don't know, it just kind of kept going down that path. And I finally determined it's not meant to be for me to continue playing football.
Yeah.
And, that bothered me for a while. And, but looking back today, it all worked out the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And no regrets whatsoever.
Yeah, that's great to always hear those stories. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So as you were at Miami, did you start to get into rugby?
I didn't get into rugby until after school, much later. Bob Deck, Anderson alum, started playing at Miami. There was a few guys from Anderson who started playing rugby at UC in college, and then there's a men's club here in town, Cincinnati Wolfhounds, and ultimately Bob Deck and some other guys were instrumental in getting me out there, and then ended up loving the sport. Never was afraid of contact or any of that, so it was right up my alley. Got to carry the ball a lot more than I did in at tight end in football. So I loved it, and became my passion, and played till I was 38. And
gosh,
got to coach some high school rugby these last few years, and got to watch my son come up in the sport, and he's a hell of a rugby player. And so that's become a big part of our life, and something that's real special to us.
Yeah, is he still talking about Max? I think is it Kutztown? Is that where he's at up in?
That's correct. Yeah. So they're one of the top Division I rugby programs in the country, recruit from all over the world. And so unfortunately they've been sidelined with COVID for these last, they missed their spring season and their fall season. So we're missing that right now, but just another reason to be ticked off at the pandemic.
Where is that? Is that in Pennsylvania?
It's in Pennsylvania. It's near Allentown, outside of Philly. Yeah. So every chance we get, we try to go watch them play. They're in a conference with Army and Penn State, and they play Navy, and and then a few other schools like them that are lesser known but very good at rugby. So it's one of the top rugby conferences in the country.
So did he start playing in high school?
He did. So with Anderson not having a program, there's a couple Anderson kids, Augie Murphy, who you guys remember,
Yep.
So Augie's father also played for the Cincinnati Wolfhounds years before me, and then Tony Tufano also played for Walnut Hills with Augie since there was no program at Anderson, and then they kind of grabbed Max, knowing that I played rugby, and Max and Trent Rogers went out and played. Trent became a high school All-American. He's at Kutztown with Max. So it's amazing how something as simple as Bob Deck invite me to come check it out is really spread. And I think a couple years back, there was 15 to 20 kids from Anderson playing rugby for Walnut Hills. And I pleaded with Newt to get a program at Anderson, but so far we haven't been successful in doing so. But
you think that would ever happen? You think that could happen at some point?
I would hope. I think there's a lot of high schools that have a fear of bringing on another contact sport. There's concern, and it's not currently Ohio High School Athletic Association sanctioned. So it's all through USA Rugby. So I think that's the next step to get it a little more widespread. There's only 6 high schools in Cincinnati that have it. So
is that considered a spring sport?
It is in high school, yes. Yeah. They try not to compete with high school football. So
yeah, I think it's possible, Danny. I mean, think about lacrosse. That wasn't around when we were around,
right?
And look at it now. You know.
Well, and there's a lot of scholarships out there, and for both boys and girls. So it's a great sport. It's a sport that the number one thing I can say about it is it's all about respect. When you grow up playing football and you beat on each other at the end, you talk trash, and in rugby you beat up on each other and then you go sit down in high school with your opposite who you were playing against, and you have a sandwich, and when you're in men's club you drink some beer and talk about how great a game they played. So that's unique, and you refer to the referee at all times by sir. And so it's a game of respect. It's a game of obviously it's a tough game, both from a collision standpoint, but from a stamina standpoint as well. So I hope it catches on at Anderson, and really throughout the U.S. It's what the fastest growing sport in the country right now. So,
wow.
But that's easy to do when you're coming from nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
Nobody knows anything about it. So,
hey, one thing that I forgot to bring up, Steve, I forgot to bring this up with Nate was, I remember your days back coaching the Mad Dogs. Talk a little bit about that. That was a good little program you had with the boy and all those guys. Talk a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking. It was awesome opportunity that, some other Anderson guys kind of brought me into the fold with that. They knew, I had a son coming up that age, and Barry Martin, and Steve Buckley asked me if I'd be interested in helping coach, and they got me involved, and ultimately became the head coach for that age group. And it was amazing how much Max's group looked a lot like the Mount Washington Nighthawks group that I was talking about.
Yeah.
And that, I think we ended up winning 40 some games in a row, and just to watch those kids come through. And then most of them end up at Anderson, guys like Sean Schaefer and Kyle Riley and Jake Campbell, and, a bunch of those guys all ended up together and still remain friends. And what was cool is a lot of them ended up playing rugby as well with that group that I got to coach. So I got to coach these guys both in football and later in rugby. So
that's pretty cool. That's a good story. I've always loved hearing those stories about those guys. I know they love it too.
But I think that says a lot about the legacy of Coach Siriano. And I know everybody who's on here has glowing things to say about Coach, but when I left Anderson, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Jake talked about his Mount Rushmore. I'll put, only a few people on my Mount Rushmore, but my dad, who I really loved hearing Joe Dunn talk about how he was a good mentor to Joe, and Ron Rosselot, my stepdad, I call him dad, but and then Vince Siriano, and I kind of had an idea. I think I either want to be a coach or maybe a financial advisor, which was what my dad did. Ultimately, I realized they're not too different. I think everybody needs a coach, and ultimately, I figured out money's a sport we play the rest of our lives, and most people aren't very good at, and they need a coach. So,
right.
I kind of consider myself a coach to this day, but it's amazing how many guys in all these classes that came up under Siriano want to be coaches, because it's the influence he had on you. He made you want to be a better man, and that's what I think we all want to do. And that's why I think, coach is so special to so many people.
Absolutely. No doubt about it.
I see Dale Adams coaching in the community, and Aaron Zabo coaching at Kings. And
right.
I know Joe's coached and Jake's coached, and almost every one of these guys I run into with kids. Yeah, I'm coaching, and they all love it.
They coach volleyball though. That kills me right there.
Yeah. Well, hey, there's a reason Jake ended up with 3 girls.
No doubt about it.
He's going to kill me for that. But if Don didn't already kill him for his comment about the hormonal crossfire or whatever it was. But,
yeah, that was immediate.
Yeah.
So Nate, let's talk about your business, because you've been in the business world for a while now, and very successful. I've seen that you guys are expanding, and you live here and you've got your business here, and everything's going well for you. So talk a little bit about your business.
Sure, thanks. Well, as much as I like talking about our glory days, I'm a much better financial advisor and business owner than I ever was an athlete. So, I'm lucky enough to be part of 2 companies, the Rosselot Financial Group that my dad founded in 1986. So, full service wealth management firm located here in Anderson. Dad's been retired for a little while now. And we've grown. We've got, 20, 25 folks here now. And
wow.
And then we've got another firm called Interdependent Advisors, where we help advisors with practice management and compliance services all around the country. So both of the, I feel very lucky for a lot of different reasons that I ended up with the stepfather I did, and what a great role model he was and is. And this industry is, like I said, an opportunity to continue to create, win-win situations for our clients. And like I said, it kind of feels like you're coaching a little bit, and so work with a great team every day. So every day I think about things that I learned from playing sports, from Coach Siriano, from my days at Princeton, and apply them in the business world, and been very fortunate. So I feel
good for you, Nate.
I feel very lucky. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so let's talk a little bit about your family, your wife, who we talked about. She was very involved with not just the kids, but the Moms Club when your son Max was playing. And talk about your daughter as well and what they're up to now.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, Christy, my wife, who I don't know what the hell she was thinking, but we ended up, we dated since sophomore year. So, and she's one of the potential casualties if recruiting had gone differently. So I count my blessings every day that things worked out the way they did, because she's been an amazing partner, the best mom I could ask for. for Max and Brooke and Devin and all the other kids that maybe called our house home at one point or another, because there was a bunch of them. And we love that. She opened our doors to a lot of these guys that were in Anderson football in Max's class, and Brooke's friends as well. And our house seemed to be that place where, there's bodies every day, and we're empty nesters now. Brooke is a freshman at UC, and she's living in an apartment down on campus, and she's currently studying nursing. Brooke has always been the most mature person in our house, and she babysits us, and Christy and I are struggling with her being gone.
Yeah.
We see her once a week. It's nice. It's much closer than Max.
Right.
But now Christy, opened our doors and raised two amazing kids, and created something pretty special.
Well,
Awesome.
Nate,
Our family.
yeah, Nate, I was just gonna go off of that too. Is that I got to work with Chrissy with the football moms, and she was awesome, and I was excited to have her for more than just 1 year, because usually I get a football mom for 1 year and then they're gone. So I had her for a couple of years, which was awesome. And then obviously I had a relationship with you and your company helping us out. And I'm going to be honest with you. If I didn't have you in the very beginning of our alumni, I don't know if we would have made it. So my thank goes to you and Christy both, because I think you guys really helped me, get that alumni association and helping the kids. And I want to thank you for your help, from both of you, from Chrissy and from you.
Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate all the stuff you do to keep you guys doing this podcast and everything. It's, it's cool to preserve this memories and talk about how the program became what it is today. And so you're doing something cool. And we were raised to give back, and and that's kind of the way I look at it. I've always believed that you get more than you give. So, if we can write a check and give a couple bucks and help a program out and help a kid out, then I don't know, somehow it ends up coming back 2-3 fold. And that's not why I ever did it, but it's been cool to see. You go check out that weight room now, and you look at the field. I always remember, I think it was Paul Gelter asked me to be on the Field of Dreams committee. I was fairly young, but we put that turf field in down there, and I thought, I don't know why they want me to help, but it ended up being a really fun thing to be involved in.
Yeah.
And every time you go down and you see that turf field, it's I don't know, we had a little hand in that or whatever else, but
that's right.
Very cool to be involved in all this stuff and to see what you're doing with the Alumni Association and keep it all alive, man.
Will, and it's
because the thing is when we talk about this stuff, I'm way better now than I was then. It's easy. There's nobody watches the videos to verify. So the more.
I know, I agree with it, because I was just getting ready to say, I was telling an earlier podcast when we played, Nate, and we said we were 2-1, and I thought the town was going to go nuts, and then we won one more game the rest of the year. And it was like, so we got to talk about, we get to talk about how we were back then too. So it's nice to talk about that stuff.
Well, I know Pat Hines from the class of '93 in our group. He put a bunch of our videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I somehow talked Max into watching them a little bit one day, and it's like, they're so grainy. Every tackle, I said, well, that was me. That was me. You just take credit because you can barely read the darn numbers.
Right.
So,
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. Now, we're going to wrap this up here soon, but one of the other things too, obviously you've come back to Anderson. You live in Anderson, you have a business in Anderson, and what, we all kind of know, what makes Anderson, a special place for you, not only just for your business, but to raise your family as well?
I think it's just a great place. It's a community where I think you know, it's evolved into a very inclusive community, and it's just a little piece of utopia here. And you know, I've never had any reason to leave. It's funny, my brother um, went all the way to Sweden,
Yeah.
and my sister went all the way to California, but I just never saw any reason to leave Anderson, and love it here. And but it's really the people. And you know, it's amazing. You know, Steve's mother-in-law lives on my street,
Mm-hmm.
and I drive by Steve's house. And you know, Anderson's a pretty big community,
Right.
but I'll bump into you somewhere, right, Dan? And
Yep.
I see Coach Siriano at Beachmont Racket Club, and we BS, you know, I don't know, once every other week or something. I'll see Coach Molinax there, and that's what makes Anderson so special. And the other part of it is um, you got Anderson, Turpin, and McNick all right here on this hill, and so it's not just the guys you see and the coaches and you know the community, but you get to see the guys you played against too, and
Yeah.
there's something cool about that. And especially when we were fortunate enough to beat up on them every year.
That's right.
But no, I mean, you know, it's it's almost like it's something out of a movie. You know, growing up in Anderson and and then living here, you know, the rest of your life, hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, so
Now
it's
that
home. It's
yeah,
home.
it really is. It's for all of us too. I mean, it's Steve and I did the same thing. You know, we try to get away, but Steve and I can only make it to Dayton, and, and obviously Steve and I weren't into the academic part of it, so we had to come back. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great community.
Yeah.
So we always try to wrap this up here real quick with the your favorite moment as a player, memory wise, maybe as a coach as the Mad Dogs,
Hmm.
and then one of the ones that Steve and I have kind of brought in here lately in the mix is the favorite teacher, right, Steve?
Yep. Yep.
Well, favorite teacher's easy. Sandra Coleman was,
There you go.
I don't, you know, she just was a great teacher. And I don't know, I think a lot of teachers that I had, I was a pain in the ass and I was goofing around. Yeah, I wasn't a good student. I didn't care. For some reason, I just didn't focus on it. I was always smart, but I wasn't a good student. But um, she saw something in me and kind of pushed me a little bit, and I always appreciated that.
Yeah,
And I
Yeah.
still talk to her to this day, and love her.
yeah,
She's a special person.
yes, she is.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
you know, I think the thing is that was an easy question to answer, but it's really hard at the same time. There was a lot of great teachers in Anderson, and I think Andy Wolf, who I don't even know if, you know, he'd know me if I bumped into him, but you know, like a class like Quest. I don't know if you guys ever
Yeah,
took
we did.
Sure.
Quest.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we did.
I took it twice. I skipped the study hall my second time so I could take it again, because what an interesting guy he is. And
Yeah,
I thought he was a great teacher. And then, you know, obviously Coach Siriano and as both a teacher and a coach.
yeah,
So, but um, favorite moment at Anderson was probably for me the Norwood game.
yeah,
And you know, I think everybody else says, boy, that Princeton game. But for me, you know, my junior year, Mark Edwards ran over me en route to a 10-year NFL career. But
yeah.
I think he ran over me, and I think he went 92 yards, and we lost by I don't know, 6 or 8 or something.
Yeah.
And that was what knocked us out of the playoffs. Randy Corbett, uh, another great coach. He gave me hell the next day. Number one, I missed a key. Number two, when I recovered and hit Edwards, I just didn't have any ass behind me. I was 6'4", 190 pounds my junior year,
Yeah.
and he said, "You better put on some weight." And I put on about, I don't know, 30 pounds or so between my junior and senior year. And then when we played Norwood my senior year, we had a little lead, and I got lucky on a third down late in the fourth quarter and put my hat on the ball on Mark, and he fumbled. And so that was kind of I would say my highlight moment of my career.
It's a good highlight.
Yeah. And that was my favorite moment. Coach Parrish always reminds me about the Princeton game, though. He says that I would be thrown out in today's game because I hit that quarterback. Even when he handed it off, they ran that option. I hit him every time. And he says to me, for the rest of his life, if he drives down the highway and sees an 84 lumber sign, he's going to think of you. So now every time I drive down the highway and see an 84 lumber sign, I think of that moment with Coach Parrish. So
that's awesome.
That's awesome. Very cool.
That's a great story. Anything real quick with the Mad Dogs? Anything stick out with that, or coaching, or rugby? Maybe rugby too.
Lots of things jump out at me, but I'll tell you what. The thing I would think back to with the Mad Dogs is really just not a memory, but where those. I tried to instill an attitude of growth and improvement in those guys, and I'll to this day I'll see some of those guys, and they'll tell me how they're doing, how they're getting better, and it's more about seeing the men they become. Sean Schaefer is currently an intern here at Rosselot Financial Group and doing a hell of a job.
What a great kid. Yeah.
Unbelievable kid. And I see a lot of these guys, and I'm just amazed at what the men they become. So that's the most amazing thing. And I'll tell you one quick rugby one. A lot of people may or may not know this, but my last game ever playing rugby, I sustained a strange injury. I had a chronic neck issue, all going all the way back to high school football. And I had a what they call a transient quadriplegic episode. So I was temporarily a quadriplegic, and I'll tell you what. The reason I bring that up is the thing that's what you learn the most about yourself in that moment. Right. And every day I think about that and how lucky I am to walk, and just maintain an attitude of gratitude in everything that I do, and try to take nothing for granted, because it could have been a lot different. So, and that's not a indictment on the sport. It was just bad genes or a bad neck, and I landed funny and I took a funny hit, and it happened. But I feel very lucky that occurred, because it changed my outlook in a lot of ways, and I feel very grateful. So
how long were you when you had that? How long were you? I mean, was it for a long period of time, or was it?
I don't know, because I was also knocked out, but I don't know, maybe a couple minutes. And
really?
the people who were there said it was pretty scary. We were in Minneapolis. We traveled all over the Midwest to play, and we were in Minneapolis. So luckily my wife and kids weren't there. And I'll tell you how good of a salesman I am. Somehow I talked this trainer into letting me walk off the field and get on a bus to ride 15 hours home with my team. And I can't believe that they let me do that, but they did. And wow. And when I went in to see our team doctor on Monday, he explained to me what had occurred, and that was my last time ever playing rugby. And
no kidding.
So yeah.
Wow. That's crazy, man. That's good stuff, though, man. I mean, talking about all the stuff that you did with rugby and all that, and it just brings back memories with me with Bobby Deck, because I coached Bobby Deck freshman football. I was his freshman football coach, which is kind of unbelievable. So it was nice to
great guy.
Oh yeah. Heck of a guy. Yeah.
Well, and I one more thing I'll say. I know we got to wrap this up. People want to hear me talk all day, but Sirianni always talked about foxhole guys, and you say names like Bobby Deck, and I think all those guys, Joe Dunn, Jeff Hast, and Jamie Mons, and Fred Woods, and Brian Herford, and I could go on and on and on and on. about the guys who are foxhole guys. And coach always described that as who would you want there next to you in the foxhole. And that's, there's a gazillion of them in Anderson, involved in Anderson football. And that's why it's such a special thing. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, Nate. Thanks for sharing all that stuff with us. We really appreciate it. And we do, Steve, I don't know. I mean, just what a way to, we've had some really good guests. And like we said with everybody else, man, I could sit here and talk for more hours, couldn't we?
No, it's awesome because, I mean, Nate's such a great guy, and I'm so proud of him and how successful he's been. He lives here and he's still a part of the community. So I'm not surprised, how successful he's been because I knew that's where he was going to be from the time I met him. So, I'm just proud of you, Nate.
Thank you. You guys are awesome. I appreciate it. I didn't know I was going to be any good, so I'm glad you thought I would, Steve. Thank you.
I knew it.
That's great, Nate. We really appreciate it. We do got to wrap it up here. So again, as
awesome.
we really appreciate it. So for
keep
Steve
it
Ellis,
up, guys. I appreciate it. Keep it
no
up.
problem, Nate. So for
Thanks,
Steve Ellis, Dan Albers, and Nate Kosman, you've been watching This Week in Anderson.